What's going on, people? Let's welcome to episode 28 of the Hip Hop Orchestra Presents. And I'm joined by, in fact, I'm going to say it right now. If it wasn't for this gentleman right here, I'm not sure where the Hip Hop Orchestra would be. He's one of my closest friends, youth consultant Joseph Gray. How are you, sir? You okay?
I'm very good. Thank you, Georgio. Thanks for that lovely introduction. And it's lovely to have made it onto the podcast.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being on it. How are you? You okay?
I am pretty good, thank you. Yeah.
Good.
It is the hottest day of the year.
It is.
So, all things considered, I'm all right. I'm
Good.
sweating.
I can see the difference in our faces. You look so pale compared to me. I'm so red right now. Look at the tomato face.
Wide open window. Just desperate.
Yeah. Oh, mate, how's lockdown been for you?
It's been a pretty mixed bag, I would say, to be honest.
Yeah. You've been busy at the moment.
Yeah, I've been nice and busy, but I think I'm really over being at home. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, it's still privileged to be at home and be comfortable and be okay and be safe and happy. But I'm someone who likes to be out and about.
Yeah.
Um,
Of course. Of course. Are you still working from home as well?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much entirely working from home, and it's just wearing a bit thin, to be honest. Like this view isn't great. I've got to know all the views in my house pretty well, and I'd like to get back out to sort of seeing people. I think really one of the things that I've really noticed is people have enjoyed working from home because they probably have a commute, like sort of a repetitive journey to get back. I don't have that because I work for myself, so I kind of, when I do go somewhere, it's quite intentional and I'm quite interested to go there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing. So I miss those journeys and getting out and about in the city, because I mean that's what.
Oh, of course. Are you working for yourself now as well? You
Yeah.
said, yeah. So
So,
what are you up to these days?
I'm working. I'm applying a lot of the sort of skills, I guess, and the approaches that led to us meeting. Through sort of youth work and youth engagement and that sort of thing. But doing it off my own bat now.
Oh, brilliant.
So, working with lots of different youth organisations and institutions, and then slightly wider, sort of working with lots of people who are trying to have a social impact.
Brilliant. How's that looking so far?
Yeah, I mean it's good. I mean, there's always going to be space to move into and impact to grow. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a tricky business moving forward because belt buckles are being tightened, I should say, all over the place. So yeah, I mean it's no one said it was going to be easy, but
Of
it's good.
course. Yeah.
Place,
Good.
and some of it's being delivered by me and people, thankfully. So yeah, long may it continue.
Brilliant. Good luck with it all. I know with your experience and how amazing you are, you'll be fine for you. I believe in it.
Nice one. That means
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you. But you know what? Before the actual podcast, we'll talk about where we originally met, wasn't it? We actually met 8 years ago, wasn't it? 8 years ago already.
In 2012, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the autumn of 2012.
Yeah.
It was at Earl's Court, and it
Mm-hmm.
was it Youth Enterprise Live, something like that?
I think it was either that one or Business Enterprise, one of the two. And I remember, obviously, the company you worked for at the time, Somewhereto, which to this day I still consider that one of the best companies I've ever worked with, obviously along with yourself as well, because what they did for us was second to none. It was unbelievable. And in fact, let's talk about that actually. How long were you there for, and what is Somewhereto? What was it all about?
So I was there for 4.5 years, and it was quite a formative place for me. I learned a lot, and more importantly, made a lot of great connections and firm friends. The project was called Somewhereto, and it was delivered by an agency in Brixton called Liberty, which was a pretty amazing place. Certainly had a bit of magic about it. It was a social enterprise, quite an old, established social enterprise.
Mhm.
So it's like coming up to 20 years old now. And yeah, Somewhereto was a project delivered by Liberty, and it was all about finding free space or underused space across the UK, and then giving it away to young people who had great ideas, basically.
Mm.
So a very simple sort of proposition, but the magic of it was in finding those young, ambitious people who didn't have anywhere to test their ideas out, and convincing people who owned great spaces to take a bit of a risk on a young person or a group of young people to sort of try out their ideas in interesting ways, with little risk, and for no sort of monetary exchange, but more of a sort of a cultural exchange, I guess.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so that was that's kind of what it was all about. And you were one of those bright young things who had an amazing idea and wanted to develop something and needed space. So it was kind of a perfect match, really, in terms of um, the reason Somewhereto existed. Yeah, to put amazing ideas like the Hip Hop Orchestra
Yeah.
into spaces and literally give them some space to sort of to breathe, to test, to try stuff out, to fail, to shift,
Hmm.
and so to then spin out and become something.
Yeah. Because, like I said earlier, to me, still to this day, I still find that experience of working with you somewhere too unbelievable for what you did for us. You helped us to evolve, to get better in every single way. So I can't thank you enough for what you've done for us. Honestly, I really appreciate it.
Well, that was a total pleasure, and I think, I mean, you know, we one of the amazing privileges of working on that project was that you kind of got to, like, particularly working in London, where there is so many incredible ideas and so much amazing work going on. I got the chance to sort of to kind of pick projects which really, like, meant something to me and really, like, jumped off the page at me. And as a big music man myself, like, your project just really shone through. So it was, I was able to, like, invest a little bit more time and really sort of try and find the right space. And I suppose along the way, like, try and give you a bit of steer personally as well, and a bit of
Yeah.
mental. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. And in terms of going back a little bit now, in terms of getting those spaces for young people, how difficult was it to kind of get these free spaces for the youth? Because I always wondered how the process worked, really. So how easy or difficult was it to get these sort of spaces for free?
I think, uh, yeah, there's no sort of straightforward answer. Sometimes extremely straightforward, because someone would just get it and they would
Yeah,
be, of course I'm going to do that. It's a no-brainer. I want to support young people, all these projects, and also, like, I want to have a little bit of a stake in cultural activity, and I want to get behind that, and I want to sort of see the early stages of great stuff. So a lot of people get behind it dead easy, but then some people just wouldn't see the value, and so, and then some people lie somewhere in the middle. They sort of get it, but, like, they're a bit risk averse maybe, and so you need to sell it in a little bit by telling them about some of the incredible projects, and that's where the sort of personal relationships that you get to develop become very valuable, because we might be able to say, go along and see a space together, and
yeah,
that might, it igniting the idea a little bit more sort of clearly for a space holder.
definitely.
Yeah, it's all partnership, really. So,
Hmm.
so it's kind of like, there's got to be a value exchange. So you work that out, you try and make that clear, you dial that up in the conversations at the right time, and all that sort of thing. So that, when I say, like, I've taken a lot of those skills forward and I use them in my team of one, which is what I am now, it's kind of, that's what I mean. It's sort of, it's the kind of the theories and the sort of practices around, like, building good partnerships that genuinely work for both sides. And yeah, I suppose also, like, trying to work with quite flat hierarchy, so everyone gets a say, and that, young people are being profiled and really pushed and given responsibility. You know, like it's not like I was turning up and letting you into the space the whole time. You were leading that, and you were not only leading the orchestra, but you were leading the kind of the logistics of it as well, and the admin side. So that's no mean feat when you're talking about like a team of however many were in the orchestra. I know it would fluctuate between sort of like 6 and
Mhm.
15 probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but thank you for your kind words, though. It really meant a lot to me. And are you still in contact with a lot of the people you used to work with back with the youth and these kind of projects that you used to work with?
Yeah. So I mean, I think for me that's been really an important piece of the puzzle, and like something that I'm quite proud of. Like, you know, yourself very much as part of this. Like I count um, a lot of the young people that I used to work with as friends now, and I'm able to bring them in on certain projects and you know, employ them, and or just give profile to their work, or you know, whatever it might be. So yeah, very much so. Like there's a lot of good folks out there. And then from the sort of from the Liberty side, or from the Somewhereto team side, you know, I'm pretty close with a handful of team members on that side as well. So it's nice to sort of have a foot in both camps, I suppose. Still,
Yeah,
and
it's lovely. How do you feel when you see these projects that you first sort of started working with, going from like little sort of unknown sort of territory to fully fluctuating to something brilliant? How does that make you feel?
yeah, I mean, it's you know, it's proud sort of proud moments really, seeing things develop, and exactly in the same way as I've just said, some space holders would be like, yeah, I want a stake in that. I
Yeah.
feel I've sort of played a part in a developmental role in sort of lots of people's progress, I suppose,
Mm.
without blow my own trumpet. That was the role. That was what it was for. So yeah, proud, really proud, and continually interested and sort of ambitious on behalf of everybody. Really, like there's so much. You know, there's so much out there. There's so much interesting opportunity. It really is just a case of connecting the dots in the right way, and I think that's something that I try and do and try and sort of live by, um, in work and just generally as well. You know,
Definitely. And I couldn't believe it as well. Like a good few years later, and or 2 years later actually, we were rehearsing at remind me of the venue. I can't remember what it's called now, but you were working there as well. Um,
cross or no.
no, it wasn't King's Cross. It was it just popped to me now that 2 years ago before BGT actually, I think they wanted us to kind of help out with one of their shows, and they told me like you worked there. It's like, oh my god, I know Joseph Gray as well. I can't
Uh,
remember.
it's slipped my mind. Was it a shared workspace, or was it a like a company?
I think it was a company's rehearsal space. I think in East London somewhere. It's just popped to me now. I'm trying to think of the actual place now, but it's so weird to actually see that. Not D&D. It'll come to me later on. Actually, it'll come out to me later. But kind of,
Right.
yeah. When it pops into my head. But kind of, have you before Somewhere to and after? Have you always been working with the youth as well, or was it something that you kind of got into, say, by accident or fell into?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I was always working that in and around education, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did like an English degree, and then like worked with various sort of charities and organisations who had like a bit of a youth angle.
Mm-hmm.
Work in schools as well. But I think that's where I was just lucky to get a job at Liberty, because it kind of had a very much a youth angle, but it was like really, really quite far away from a school environment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Quite a bit more creative, quite a bit more entrepreneurial inherently, and also it had this sort of you know, it's very purposeful, but it's a profitable business. So it's sort of, there were some big learnings in there in terms of, you know, you don't just have to work in a completely charitable way. You can, you know, you can command like decent fees, and like you can build good budgets, and still have real impact. So I think, yeah, I mean, I think I didn't really consciously ever decide that I wanted to work in the youth space, I suppose. And since then, you know, since I've been working for myself, not all of my work is is with young people, and increasingly, I guess it's like less frontline. So I'm delivering less stuff in like event context, but I'm doing more strategic work and then working more widely on social impact sort of stuff. So I work with an amazing charity called Bloody Good Period, which is dedicated to menstrual equity, for example. So
Mm.
it's all about like providing period products for refugees and asylum seekers in the UK. So that's really, I find that really interesting because it's like, it's not a cause that obviously directly affects me as a man. I don't menstruate, but like there's real impact to be had there. And so I'm really interested in stepping in and adding value where welcome and where I can, whatever the cause, whatever the sort of whatever the impact.
Yeah. And talk going on from that, so from that bloody good period, what kind of projects have you worked on that have really taken you by surprise about how good they were or how amazing were they? Or kind of, yeah, I'll leave it at that really.
Yeah, like being surprised by work. I mean, the work that I am doing with BGP with Bloody Good Period is probably some of the more inspiring stuff because the team is so tiny,
Mm.
and because it's the newest. So it was only founded in 2016. It's
Okay.
like 6 people at the moment, only 2 full time. I'm not full time there, but so the it's iterative and it's emergent. What I mean by that is we're kind of like we're making it up as we go along in the best possible way, and so I really really love that because it's creative.
Mm.
So it's the absolute opposite of working for like a massive organization or an institution where it's very slow moving because there are lots of people. You've got to go through the gears and it's like turning a really slow ship. This is like being on a little scooter or something, and you're whipping around, making decisions like quickly and with agility, and like you're sort of following your nose a little bit. And
Mm.
so whilst I'm not surprised by the work. I think that's the wrong word, but it's like it's really switched me on. And
Yeah.
it's kind of invigorating work to work
Yeah.
with a fantastic leader. It's Gabby Edlin, who's the founder and CEO of Really Good Period. She really leads from the front and like is really gives agency to everyone and really allows you to sort of drive the work forward. But also just the cause itself. It's like fundamentally an
Yeah.
activist that really inspires like being on the front foot and super good communication
Mm.
and working quickly. Yeah.
Brilliant. And when you look to work with people, what are the kind of things that you look for in terms of so overall package? You look for their aims they're working towards, or the overall package. What kind of things do you look for when you want to work with someone?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I haven't got much of a strategy
Mhm.
in terms of, which is I guess one of the real benefits of working on your own because you can kind of follow your nose a little bit, and that is kind of what I do, to be honest, Giorgio. I sort of, if I meet someone whose work looks good, I might sort of approach them a bit and kind of see what they're up to and see if I can add any value. It's kind of it tends to be driven by an individual bit of a moment of inspiration or a bit of chemistry that I feel,
Mhm.
and yeah, I mean, I guess it's quite fortunate that to be able to kind of follow the individuals that inspire you. But yeah, I mean that's kind of been the way it's worked. Um, Not always. I mean, like not always, but three of the projects I'm working on at the moment have really come from just feeling a sense of chemistry with an individual
Mhm.
who I actually really I'm learning. I'm immediately learning. Um, let's do some work, and then it doesn't always come off immediately, but you show a bit of commitment, make yourself available, that sort of thing.
Hundred
Yeah,
percent, 100%. It's all about consistency and hard work, isn't it? I've realised with everything that you work towards. But I just found it is Oxford House. That's it.
house, right?
Yeah. I couldn't remember that. I can't remember if you told me or someone I was working at the time said, I work with a guy called Joseph Gray. I think that Joseph Gray, I know him really, really well. Really well. How long were you there for?
I think I worked there for maybe 18 months. Yeah. Oh, it's a pretty fascinating space in Bethnal Green.
Hmm.
And it's really small team who have kind of evolved into like a shared workspace, but with like sort of private offices for various people. So they're really effectively like a landlord, but they've got these amazing spaces
Mm.
that you probably got sight of. There's an incredible chapel at the top. There's an
Yeah.
amazing, and now more recently, since like a heritage lottery funding thing, they've got this amazing roof garden or
Mm.
roof um, with a really quite incredible view of the city. Yeah, I recommend going and getting a look around and having it, having a look at the roof when if it's still if it's open. I'm sure it's gradually opening. We're in weird times at the minute, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Ca-
it's been sort of expertly steered by a guy called John Ryan, who's a friend of mine, and has really shaped the sort of progress of Oxford House. So I had a good time there. I was working on a project called Love Bethnal Green, which was like a celebration of community projects, businesses, anybody living in the E2 postcode in Bethnal Green who were
mm.
adding value to the area. We're trying to inspire sort of collaboration and that sort of thing.
Brilliant. I can remember when we were there, actually, it was a brilliant venue for us to rehearse in. And, or actually, no, it had to be, I think, closed down for refurbishment, wasn't it, at the time?
Right, yeah, so that'll be the Heritage Lottery work that they've had done just recently.
Yeah. Oh, obviously, it's finished now, isn't it? That was from 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right.
Which, yeah,
In the last 12 months or so. Yeah, it's worth a look. Go and
definitely.
have
Oh,
a
have they added the roof garden from now, or was that there before? Because I remember they're mentioning that when I was there.
So that's new, yeah.
Oh, it's new.
And I think it's it's very much available for hire. This is becoming a bit of advertorial for Oxford
Yeah,
House.
yeah. I'll leave links below. That's brilliant. But where's been some of your favorite projects that you've worked on over the years? Do you have any sort of personal favorite ones you've had the chance to work on?
I think I think there are a lot of really good bits of work in within the Somewhereto project. So
Hmm.
lots of nice event sort of mechanisms that we developed. There was like a pitching event, and like various panel events, which just felt like they landed really well.
Yeah.
So fun. And I kind of carried that on to do various bits of work in a similar vein with the Barbican on their sort of youth side of things. So I enjoy that work because I enjoy curating panels and kind of facilitating the conversations as well. So it's a bit of
Mm.
a I wear quite a few hats in that role, and I enjoy that. Um, yeah. What else has been going on? I've on a slightly different sort of track. I've done some sort of research work for brands. So worked with Adidas and Red Bull and Dr. Martens most recently,
Wow.
and those ones they're interesting because you kind of like my role in it was to kind of bring interesting groups of young people together who were going to have interesting stuff to say, basically,
Hmm.
and have an insights gathering sort of mission. But it's always quite fun in a way to see how brands gather those insights and I think it's really important to keep quite a cynical hat on
Yeah.
about that whole process. So I think I enjoyed convening those groups of young people and kind of like encouraging them to see it not just as a sort of 60-minute conversation, but like to really invite them to be inquisitive about the brands, but also the agency that was doing the work on,
Mm.
and like everything in between. Like, how does this work? Because there are a lot. If we fast forward, there are a lot of roles that young people just don't have a clue what they are. They don't know that they exist, and they feed into what we call the creative industries, which is absolute beast of £1 billion, multiple billions of pounds into the UK economy. But loads and loads of those roles, young people just don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Try and encourage like, don't just come and collect your 80 quid and have a conversation and like blow smoke up Adidas's backside. think about where this all comes from. Like, what's the arc of your insight, and how might you be able to feed into it, longer term, and like ultimately look at a role in strategy or in client servicing or in designing trainers or running really quickly.
Mm. Because it's true. Because I'm like, just like adding to that, I'm the type of person I love to learn from as much as possible. I don't just turn up, do the event, or say, and then come back. I love to learn from everything that I work on, and kind of adding on from that as well. What kind of advice would you give for the youth when they're working on say business or product? What would you kind of advise them to work on? Adding to that.
It's a good question. I would talk about sort of purpose.
Mm.
And I mean that in quite like a broad way, in broad sense. So I don't mean you've got to go and like, give your life to the third sector or to a charity or something like that, and do it that way. I just mean like just be clear about why you're doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go into it blind. Build a bit of a narrative and a story around why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So that when someone asks you a question, you're like, well, I'm doing it because I want to have loads of impacts on this, this, and this, or I'm doing it because this builds my experience in this area because ultimately I want to get here.
Mm.
Or I really, really love t-shirts, and like, I've always wanted them to be slightly longer, so I've gone out and designed them that way.
Yeah.
It's just like make sure that your purpose and your passion just like absolutely bleeds out when someone asks you about the work. It's just so obvious. It's just right there, and
Mm.
I think that's what the single piece of advice I would give. I'd also say, definitely don't be a dick. Don't just
Yeah. It's
don't be.
true. Yeah.
Come back around, and you'll know when you've put the phone down, or when you've like leave a meeting, or when you'll know when you've been a dick, and
Yeah.
like don't do it. Like say sorry for it, draw a line
Yeah.
under it.
I'm exactly the same as that, because I know, because I couldn't agree more, because everyone I've worked with throughout, I've felt like I've been cool with. I've been nice to them, professional, and you never know when you might work with them again or see them again, or see them on the way up or the down. So, like you just said, just don't be a dick to anyone, because you never know what they might be going through that day either. Just be cool with everyone, and kind of going.
Because I mean, like, come on, dickisms we can do without it.
Of course, it's enough stress as it is without that. So, but what speak because you've obviously given me fantastic advice through the years, which I'm really thankful again. What's been some of the amazing advice that you've been given through the years that you've been able to pass on to other people?
Um, yeah, good question.
Thank you.
I think this isn't very good, is it?
That's all right. I can always pause it if you need to. I'll go on for later.
I mean, on a personal level, my dad always told me, give your mates a hard time, but never about the same thing twice. I
Mm.
think twice. Don't sort of labour a point, basically.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, purpose is a big one, and that kind of stayed with me from sort of again from probably quite early. Like my parents were both extremely passionate about education, and that was a very clear purpose. So that kind of fed into the way that I sort of sought out my work and my career, I guess. Let me have a think about it, Georgia. I'm sure
No,
some.
that's like no problems. And so throughout the years as well, and hopefully for the future as well, have you any kind of dream project that you've always loved to work on, whether it's like maybe opening up your own school or your own project, whatever it might be? Do you have any kind of ideas that you're wanting to work on?
Yeah, I think I've had loads. I think that yeah, I'm someone who maybe hasn't always acted on my ideas, which is probably regrettable in some ways, but like also you probably there's probably a reason you don't do something. Maybe you're not quite there yet, or maybe the timing's a bit off. Um, I do this. I do a newsletter which I started just recently in lockdown, It's called Hear the Things, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a bit of a sort of a listings thing for young people to show opportunities, funding, jobs, bits of writing that are really worth like sort of having a look at. And I think that could become something that could become it could work well in like a podcast format, say. So that's and I think like I enjoy having conversations, and I used to be a radio guy. I used to do some radio with a group called Lacodia on Hoxton FM, which was like a music and conversation sort of thing. So we play a lot of records, and then we get musicians in and chat about the sort of production process and that sort of thing. So I think like that's an itch that I'd quite like to scratch again.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, loads of loads of sort of harebrained publishing ideas and like ideas for like I really wanted to start like a reviewing platform for hand dryers in toilets.
Okay.
Obviously, it's a ridiculous idea, but like huge variety of quality in terms of like hand dryers.
Yeah.
Anyway, someone's done it. It's called the SLRHD, the South London Review of Hand Dryers.
Okay.
Okay, worth a look.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
So I think what I find interesting about like ideas and
Oh, give me 2 seconds, sorry. Give me 2 seconds, sorry. Sorry about that.
back on.
Yeah, back on.
So what I find interesting about ideas and what I find important for us all to realize is that very little is completely original. You know, it's kind of, there are a lot of people out there doing amazing work basically, and so we're we're all curating these ideas, basically borrowing from other great stuff that goes on. And so yeah, there's an interesting thing about ego there, I guess. It's like if the great ideas are getting done somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
does it matter that you're not doing them yourself?
Yeah. You know what?
Philosophical.
Yeah, you know what? I love that because I kind of wanted to add to that. It's like, what kind of elements do you think a person needs if they want to create their own sort of say business, for instance? Do they need that kind of like a bit of ego, like you said, or determination, discipline? What do you think makes sort of someone make their own great business?
Yeah, I mean, like again, I think it comes back to sort of having a very clear purpose for why you're doing it. Like, I think beyond like, often people are driven by money, but increasingly people are looking maybe slightly beyond that, and like, or as well as that, looking at social bottom lines or environmental bottom lines. That's great. So purpose, I think, is really, really key. But I think it really is just about like clarity of thought and hard work. Like I think, if you've got a clear plan, you can put it on the back of a postage stamp and you work extremely hard until it's been achieved, then you're laughing. And then it's just about, is the idea good in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
How do you execute it?
Yeah.
And if all those stars align, then greatness awaits.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. And for someone like you who has like a million ideas, fantastic ideas, yet works with so many different people at the same time, how do you kind of cope with that, dealing with so many things at the same time? Do you have a sort of your own plan that you work towards, or is it just go with the flow, really?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, to my detriment, it is the latter. So it is like go with the flow, and I'm
Yeah.
not a well organized or structured worker. I'm I work across a number of different projects at the same time, which I enjoy, and because I think about it strategically. So a lot of the projects complement one another, and they feed into each other, and they feed my brain in ways that add value to each individual piece of work, which is again like such a huge privilege of working off your own bat. But yeah, Giorgio, I need help. I need this is a call out. This is a direct call
Yeah.
out.
I think it's my turn to help you now, isn't it? So I'm going to help you now if I can in any way possible. So if I can help you, I'm always here for you.
A lot of time is spent diarizing meetings, and Desperately trying to work out why it's coming up at sort of 7 a.m. in the morning on one calendar, but 12
Yeah.
noon on. I'm sort of reasonably on point in
Hmm.
terms of technology, but could be better.
Yeah.
Could be better.
How are you finding using Zoom at the moment? You must do so many meetings through Zoom now. How do you find it all?
Thankfully, um, I know people are talking about sort of death by Zoom.
Mhm.
I'm very fortunate that I'm not meeting all the time on Zoom because often meetings are one-on-one for me. So I will push for just doing that on the phone. And then actually yesterday I had the pleasure of actually going and meeting two colleagues from Barbican and from Guildhall School of Music and Dance face to face in a park. So yeah, the more of that, the better moving forward. As I said, I've got itchy feet, but yeah, I mean, I'm not big. I'm not. It's a. It's great, isn't it? It's a brilliant platform,
It
but
is.
like one every few days for me is good because that feels like novelty and it's really good to connect facially. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I just think overdone. It's a bit oppressive for people, I think, and a bit a lot, and like it gives people stuff to worry about that they don't shouldn't necessarily have to worry about. So yeah, it's that really interesting debate and balance around the future of work and what it looks like and who benefits, and like to be able to work from home at all and to have a stable internet connection, that is like a significant privilege, and everyone who's got it really needs to like wake up to that and realize that and cherish it. uh,
Exactly.
yeah, future work, it's
It,
interesting to see where it'll go, and like a lot of the work that I'm doing really feeds into that debate directly and kind of relies on certain mechanics and hopefully helps to shape the
definitely
future.
for sure. Because I always feel like like using Zoom is such an amazing tool to use, and this face-to-face thing is so good now. And I don't know, it's just an amazing thing to use. And like you said, it's just a chance for people to hopefully appreciate what they have on hand, whether it's a stable internet connection, and a face-to-face chat with someone is just so good. And
Yeah,
how did you feel about doing a meeting yesterday for the first time in a while?
yeah, it felt good. It felt really good. Yeah, it was nice. I like one of the people in the meeting I'd never met before face to face. So but we've been working very closely together. So it was actually it was pretty great in that regard. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't know about you in terms of like getting out and about and kind of like slowly but surely normalizing life in a safe, socially distanced way.
Mhm.
That's something that I'm beginning to do, and yesterday was a nice piece of that puzzle for me.
Oh, fantastic! So good to hear. But I'm wishing you all the luck with your future, though. And what are you working on at the moment? I had to say what you're working on at the moment.
Yeah, I can say what I'm working on. Nothing
Okay.
in, I think.
Okay.
So I'll start with just a tiny bit of detail on the Bloody Good Period stuff because actually the initiative I'm developing is called Bloody Good Employers,
Mm.
and it's an HR initiative to improve the way that UK employers support anyone experiencing menstruation at work. So
Mhm.
that's where there's this really interesting thing like the future of work and how you properly drive forward gender equality if people are able to work from home.
Mhm.
We're a vehicle for that. So come at me and talk to me about that. I'd love to talk to you, UK employers or anyone at work in the UK. Barbican stuff, yeah, that's moving on. It's called Creative Careers, and it's all about how everyone's doing, how young people move forward, how they find opportunity and keep it, and how they're given suitable amount of responsibility and agency by big institutions like the Barbican to really drive great work forward and out the door. There's a great project called Share Somewhere, which is kind of like not dissimilar to Somewhereto. It's about um, really upping the ante on the way that community assets and interesting spaces in communities are used and made available, and then ultimately hired. So you're trying to build in like a bit of a sort of revenue stream for underused spaces. So really quite similar to Somewhereto. Yeah, I mean, quite a few different bits and pieces. I'm working a little bit with teams in Coventry Council on what their City of Culture offer looks like next year because they've won City of Culture. for 2021. So obviously that's a hugely challenging, future for that as a piece of work. It's like, how do you, socially distance culture? That's tricky.
It's very
Uh,
tricky, but it all sounds amazing though. And I'm wishing you so much success with that. It sounds really good. Really good.
Tell me about what's going on with the orchestra before we sign off.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah, this is our main focus at the moment. But we actually did a fantastic video shoot on Monday for a big artist, which we can't say who it is just yet. But you'll find out by the time this episode comes out, hopefully the video will come out at the same sort of time. But it's a secret for now. But it's a really good artist, and like I said about the social distance thing as well, is the first time I've seen him since December. Actually, a lot of these members, because we had a show in France actually in December in the French Alps.
Nice.
And yeah, and oh, my mate, that's the most incredible experience ever. That one. I mean, the chance to fly to a different country and perform in the Alps for a major festival is amazing. And I was saying that actually to like friends and family, and I shared on social media as well that waking up, we stayed in a chalet actually in a lovely town in France, and I can't remember exactly where it was now. Les Deux Alps, I think it was called, and we got there in the evening, really late at night, so obviously pitch black everywhere, apart from the few lights in the city. But when we opened up our hotel door in the morning, your view was covered in snowy mountains everywhere, and you know when it's
No,
like you know when it's like a really surreal feeling, thinking, "Oh my god, I'm actually staying here! Wow, that's incredible." But since then, obviously, since what's been happening with the pandemic, thank you, like since the pandemic, obviously, we've obviously had to cancel a lot of events, unfortunately. But touch wood, the podcast is going really, really well, and things going through, or at least obviously sharing content at the same time, sharing stories and behind the scenes moments, and these sort of
great.
things. And obviously, like we said earlier before, that just getting to show people the people that have helped inspire us and motivate us. And like we said at the start of the episode, if it wasn't for you, I have no idea where we would be, because you honestly, you helped us so much. I said to so many people thinking this guy and his company have been beyond amazing. So once again, I just want to take this moment to say thank you for everything you've done. You might not think it, but you've made a major impact on my life. So thank you for everything.
Oh, Georgia, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot for the conversation today. It's been great. We're great to sort of back and reflect and sit with some of those successes that we sort of achieved together. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram as
Mm-hmm.
Yusuf Gray. So that's YUSUFGRAY.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Yusuf on there because it was a nickname from a trip to Turkey, and everyone had taken Joseph Gray. I went with Yusuf. Um, yeah, and then that's probably the best spot, to be honest.
No, I always wonder where that use of great came from. Actually, I could ask you that. So, was that a nickname then that was given to you?
Yeah, because
Y-
Yusuf is Joseph, but
Yeah.
in many like Eastern
Ah, see, I never knew that this whole. I've known you for like 8 years. I never knew that. So thank you for that.
version of
But
the same thing.
definitely, yeah. But I'll leave that in the links below in the video. But Georgie, thank you so much again for being a part of my podcast today. It's a pleasure
Great,
catching up with you.
great to see you.
You too, and take care, everyone. Peace.